Hello and welcome to the aMS Southeast Asia 2021. Welcome and thank you community for Azure, Microsoft 365 and SharePoint. Thank you sponsor for making this, actually helping to make this happen. And all of these, plenty of them, and feel free, please take note of the sponsor, valuable ones. And please, before you do anything else, just take a moment to scan for feedback and quit. It is very important, and for future planning and for feedback, and of course you can win some prizes as well. And this is the last day. We've been together yesterday and Friday and Saturday today. Answer as many questions as you can, and remember that high scores get rewarded. So this code, take a moment to scan it and submit your last quiz by 11:59 of today. Don't forget to do that. So join as many as you can get the hints on the correct answers of the quiz. So please take a moment. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and of course we'll be sharing this at the end as well. Thank you for being here, and this is the 10 ways to secure the Microsoft 365 environment. And well, at the digression, there are no 10 ways. There are like unlimited number of ways, because the security is the layered approach, and there is no end to security, of course. So if you want to be really protected, then you don't just stop at these 10, and not at all at 10, but implement whatever you have to implement to make the your environment secure. But we'll say this a few times along, because it's important. But important is that we've been along the way found out in certain occasions that these in fact are the back doors of the keys. In fact, the back doors to enter and for bad people to get to your data, in fact. So my name is Sasha, and I'm an Azure MVP, and also the Microsoft Certified Trainer and regional lead, as well. Actually, not the Certified EC Council Instructor as well, mostly doing Azure and Security, and no longer Microsoft Certification Advisory Council member. And so the role is rotating, but have been recently. And we, as the owner of a few companies that are Microsoft partner and come together as training partners, so we perform and do architecture and security training as well, and Azure training and Office 365, Microsoft 365 training. So once again, welcome to 10 ways to secure a Microsoft 365 environment. And believe it or not, and this is something that also the birds are singing on the trees, and you could imagine it's a multi-factor authentication, and yes, it is. So first of all, a digression again. So there are, of course, a lot of tools and ways to secure your environment, and especially in Microsoft 365. But we are in the cloud era, and we are all the tools and features and environments are intertwined. For example, there is Azure Active Directory, which is the common ground for your Microsoft 365, and the Azure environment. So whether you just do Azure infrastructure, or you are a developer in Azure, or if you are just having your Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 or any kind of subscription or tenant. Well, tenant is the common ground, but the point is that what is the goal? What is our goal? Our goal is to protect our assets, and our assets are not just contained in a Microsoft 365 subscription and the features and the settings that you have when you open the Microsoft 365, the portal.office365.com portal. And remember that persons that want to get to your data, in fact, do not stop where you stop. So if you don't have if you have never visited Azure portal, that doesn't mean that that bad persons that want to get your data don't know how to navigate these waters, and the features that are there also are compelling for them to exploit. So it is the bad people wanting to get data will do whatever they have to do to get the data, and usually they will follow the path of the least resistance, and will eventually find a way to get to your data. So whether you like it or not, and you have to be we the protectors of our data are in fact in a very inconvenient position, very enviable position. The bad persons, the hackers in this case, for example, they need to be right just once out of the millions, hundreds of millions times that actually they try to access your data. So these are bots, these are computer systems. Well, yes, behind them there are humans, but there are hundreds of millions and billions of retries and retries every day in different ways how they're trying to get to your data, and they need to be right just once to get your data. But we, the defenders, we need to be right just well, all the times. So we are. In fact, our job is a little bit harder, and since why top 10 and why these 10? We've in our consulting and training practices, we've found out that a lot of times companies actually focus. They don't see the three out of the woods, if I say that correctly. So they are looking, but not seeing the obvious. And while protecting only, for example, and setting up the options in Microsoft 365, they neglect some options that are there available, the obvious ones that are in front of them, and that actually can make the difference. So, do we hate passwords? Yes, passwords are hard to use, good, complex. In fact, passwords are in fact difficult to remember, and easier to remember. Complex passwords are trivial to guess, and passwords, in fact, on non-traditional keyboards are really challenging, and password changes actually need support calls, and hackers love passwords, of course, especially if they're weak. Passwords are trivial to attack, and username and password only account as a single factor because the password is one factor. The username is nothing but an address where we try a password. So this is in fact one factor. You don't have two ways to protect your identity. It's only one, and these passwords are usable across multiple devices and locations. White passwords again, and why it looks trivial and stupid, and yes, it is. But then in turn, a lot of people, you'll be surprised how many organizations and people actually don't have a right password policy and multi-factor authentication in place. And in fact, this
well, the passwords are expensive and insecure, so password can be reused, and passwords are the weakest link. Well, actually, we, the users, are the weakest link. So actually, the human factor is the weakest link. So we are the humans are like homeostasis. They don't like change. So if you haven't been using multi-factor authentication previously, then it's hard to actually change people's habits, and then there are a lot of there's a lot of resistance, and from the users, and from the admins, and from everyone, and well, from the majority at least. And sometimes the companies actually end users don't go the hardest way, and that would be the change and spending a little bit, or for individual a little bit money, for companies a little bit more, but they stay out of the inconvenience, and they stay with the status quo, and that what makes you vulnerable. It extremely yes, it looks trivial and stupid, but it's true. So well, passwords are susceptible to attacks. If you just take a look at the logs in your Microsoft 365 and Azure environment, if you take a look at them, then you'll see that if you just leave your environment unprotected, or if you just look at your environment, then you'll see hundreds of thousands of failed login attempts, and obviously these are the bots. But the attacks on passwords are in fact very common, and 62%, for example, or 65% of the users admit to reuse passwords for work and personal accounts. Is it bad? Yes, if you don't apply multi-factor authentication. Almost 20 passwords are weak and susceptible to password spray, and almost 1%, and that's billions of sent emails in 2019 have been phishing emails, and phishing email campaigns are on the rise, and cybercrime is on the rise. Spear phishing, especially used in almost 10% of recent cyber attacks. I just recently, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, there was information out there that someone actually succeeded to steal a couple of hundreds of millions from a CEO of a company that hadn't been using the password protection or the account protection. Why accounts? Why we are talking about passwords? Why it's simple and yet nobody does it? Because, like I mentioned, people like homeostasis, and I cannot stress how important it is, and to have this multi-factor authentication up and running. Not 81% of breaches actually leverage these stolen weak passwords, but in fact, almost 99.9% of the identity attacks, multi-factor authentication can prevent, and that is extreme number. And you'll be surprised. There was, I think it was on Ignite somewhere in December 2018 or 19, something like that. I can't remember whether it's 18 and 19. This pandemic it looks like it's like 50 years here, and there was an official reveal of the fact that in fact that in just 5% of the administrators have been using multi-factor authentication worldwide, and that's devastating fact. And you'll be surprised how many occasions we had to actually went to a company and did a security assessment and did a post-breach report and everything, and then found out in almost 8 times out of 10 that a password has been the main reason, or one of the main reasons, one of the biggest reasons why, in fact, the bad people succeeded to get the data. Because no one actually would go with a tank or with a gun inside a facility, because it's too hard. Remember, bad people are actually going the easiest way, and the easiest way is to phish, actually to send a phishing email and to social engineer someone, and in fact to just pick weak passwords. So the Microsoft FIDO multi-factor authentication, passwordless authentication, please do that. Use that. How actually we won't actually see here how it works, but in fact, there is Microsoft is almost, well, it's here, so almost in somewhere in the around the number 4 element passwords from identity. Well, just a little bit in between 3 and 4. But even if the passwords won't be eliminated totally, we still can eliminate how we use them, and in fact, if we use them at all. And in fact, let's just take a look quickly how we can do that. So please use two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. Well, two, and there is a very nice also our tenants support that. So what we need to do, we need to go to the, in fact, go to the Azure Active Directory in Microsoft 365 Admin Center, then all admin centers, and you can go to the Azure Active Directory. So AAD portal, aadportal.azure.com, and then navigate to the Azure Active Directory, or you can also go to the portal.azure.com. It's and then Azure Active Directory, in fact, is the same. So this is really the same. Then we have the security. Then you have the authentication methods, and here are our environment. Our tenant actually supports Microsoft Authenticator. It's free. Please use that. How can you do that? Enable it and target. Well, if you're not using it, don't click on all the users. Just select some users and then gradually. But there is a campaign needed. There's even the documentation on Microsoft Download Center. Look for MFA campaign, and then you have the banners, passwords, email templates, PDF documents, and everything that can help you to in fact introduce the MFA campaign in your company, and that is done step by step. Don't do that like in one day, and gradually to the departments, so the different users. So please enable authenticators. Microsoft Authenticator is one, and the FIDO2 security key is the second one. So there are a lot of different security key providers like Ubica or EWBM or Fission. Please, there is a list of the supported FIDO2 providers, and then use some. Enable and configure it. You can also configure the key restrictions if you want to just configure a restriction to a particular model of the FIDO2 key. And in fact, when you enter the restriction key of the keys, these will be restricted and not available to use. Once you do that, please go to the, in fact, myaccount.microsoft.com for that particular user or for users, and then enable. When you go to the security info, what you have to do, in fact, is enroll the passwords, enroll the multi-factor authentication or FIDO2. So use the Authenticator app or use your security key. When you click on add a key, then you need to sign in with two-factor authentication if you haven't done that. And once you do that, then the key will be listed in here. Well, you have to register the key and then list the key and do that. And of course, if it's of course the if it's the multi-factor authentication, then of course you can do multi-factor authentication per user, which is not recommended, but usually you would do it via conditional access. But we will get back to it. Let's take a look at the other things. Secure score, another thing that is in fact neglected very often, because people like say admins and now this is not good, and it is, in fact, this is for kids only, for children, and for it's not for serious admins. We don't use that. In fact, it is not stupid. So you have to have a landing page, and that should be the secure score page. In fact, it provides you the visibility. So in larger environments, and we can't go to hundreds of servers. We can't go to the hundreds of services, and we have admins are overburdened. We have to have something that we can compare our security to, and that is to the yesterday status and today's status to the tomorrow status, so we know how we are doing, whether we are doing better or whether we are doing worse, and especially what is in fact the secure score. So what are the weak points and what's in there for us. So from there you can go elsewhere and do, let's say, serious stuff, if you mean by serious stuff actually implementing security, turning on features, and so on. So the scores, in fact, the score relies on telemetry from the services, and in fact the services like SharePoint, Exchange Online, OneDrive for Business, in fact also the feed telemetry into data store. And when this store is queried at a certain point of time, then that info that secure score measures is put into separate store for secure store. And so when you access the secure store, the points you obtain and the data on what controls are enabled are pulled from the data store, in fact. And when you mark an action as ignore, for example, or third party, then the data is held separately from the workload telemetry, and it's also read by the secure score user interface when you view the secure score and analyzer. And of course some actions provide points for reviewing reports and to record, in fact, that you review these reports. The data goes to an Azure Event Hub and then to a secure score process that anonymizes the data. So for example, you don't want to store that a person review the report, for example, but the process also adds when the points for that action should be removed, as each report needs to be reviewed on a regular basis as well. So in fact, what we have else? So in fact, Microsoft Secure Score is a tool to give ongoing security posture improvement. So it enables organizations to, in fact, to assess worldwide security posture, broken down by security category, product, security solution, and it's easy to get to the secure score. It is the security.microsoft.com. So then you get the list of discovered actions, and of course then it's the tool that actually is it's here to drive the posture improvement security. It's well, security is not something that we just go in there in a room or in a place in Microsoft 365 or in fact or in Azure or wherever and just click on a button and say, okay, we're secure now. But not is the continuous process, is the security is should be a layered approach. It means that we should strive to turn on and set up and use as much as security features as possible, because what we need to do, we need to raise the cost of the bad persons, of the hackers, and actually delay them to get our data. And by delaying them in their process to get our data in a hacking or breaching process, in fact, we are increasing the cost, which actually breaks their return on investment and actually makes them more susceptible to the fact that we can in fact see them, and if we have a late approach, then actually they will leave eventually some traces. And all the layers, and that means the secure posture, the secure score, threat management, and DLP policies, and logging, and everything that we have, in fact, has their own logs, has their own way that there's these feature protector systems, and these actions, in fact, these features and everything that we do, in fact, makes us less vulnerable and makes them more vulnerable and susceptible to leave some traces as well. So the secure score, in fact, is a tool that in fact you see the actions to real-time monitoring, control effectiveness, and in fact see the controls that are opportunities to harden the attack surface, in fact. And Microsoft has mapped these controls to a category, which is the identity, apps, data, device, infrastructure, and so on. And depending on the security value of each control, Microsoft assigns a point of 1 to 10, and then all these points are aggregated, in fact, to give us the total opportunity and denominator and denominator, of course. So the workloads are also constantly monitoring the state of each control. For example, one control is implementing antivirus on all machines. The others are looking for devices that assess workloads in real time. For example, how many machines have antivirus, and definitions, and assigns the organization from 0 to maximum points for this control, for example. And the sum of all the organization implemented points is the numerator, and the organization numerator slash denominator is in fact the organization score, which is represented as a percentage. And of course, and the licenses doesn't matter, and these are in fact just for the applicable controls only. So very, very important, because this is the place that we actually we have the most important things, so that we can focus on and go from there. So, and it's important to have a strategy or a path or plan or a point from to start from, and that's extremely important in security. So I suggest that you use it, and that let's make it your landing page. So you, for example, if you're a security admin, let's make it the first thing you look at morning, for example. And well, the coffee should be the first thing, but this should be the second one. And of course, if you drink coffee or tea, but once you take a look at it, that could take a minute, 2, 5, and then you can take it from there. connected to this story, it's also the identity story and the multi-factor authentication and the thing that the fact that we are the weakest link is in fact the point that we are in fact the ones who are attacked the most, or so the identity is in fact the security boundary. The security boundary is not anymore the computers, the servers, or the room or devices. The identities are here that we are attacked on. So no one's going to breach the Azure data center, but in fact, or attack, for example, and probably you would need a tank to go inside. But in fact, the attackers, the hackers are targeting persons. So we need to protect identities. Azure AD identity protection here also gives us the extremely important information about vulnerabilities, about different risk events, and vulnerabilities that are reported by identity protection, in fact, along with recommendations. So this is, for example, the most important things. There is no overwhelming list of the things that you will see here, but just most important things. So multi-factor authentication registration is not configured. So if you have some unmanaged cloud applications, or if you have some Active Directory identity-related risk events, or users with leaked credentials, so you can have your Microsoft 365 in cloud app security and everything in place. You can turn everything on, but if the password is leaked or identity is compromised, then everything falls apart. So it's you have to protect the identities, passwords, humans, and take a look at all actions that actually go around this. And this is especially important in the last two years, where these types of attacks have been on the rise. And why? Because in fact Microsoft 365 and Azure environment, it's getting more and more secure and sophisticated, but the humans here, the identities are in fact that you see, for example, are most vulnerable, and you can see that from these events here. Sign-ins, impossible travel, everything here applies actually to us. In fact, we are the weakest parts in here, and like impossible travels and so on. So we take a look at these and then provide and do some actions. From there you can take it and do something. So let's say implement data loss protection and other things as well, like information protection and so on. So you can stop the additional further leakage of data. So you should have a one let's say starting point, and this should be this one. Well, in fact, this secure score should be the one. Then this one be the next as well. The next part, which is also tied to Azure and to Microsoft 365, is in fact the privileged identity management. Is in fact the control. It enables us to manage and control and monitor access with our organization. But in fact, in the PIM, in fact, is the Azure ID's tool to in fact configure potential vulnerabilities affecting users' identities, and we can then inspect how the users are in fact consuming their privileged identities. So there won't be very the attackers won't actually have very much. They probably won't attack regular users, but in fact the management, the CEOs or C-level executives in a targeted attacks, and we've seen many times in our practice, and especially from stale administrative accounts, the breach has gone further, and that's where it happened. So the stale accounts that had administrative roles, and the accounts that haven't been used for days, weeks, months, and years. Me personally, I've found out a couple of years ago that I'm still the enterprise admin at one of my universities that I've been in 20 years before, and more even. And it's unbelievable that actually someone actually would leave that there, but it does, and especially when a lot of especially when the companies merge, and especially when the companies have a lot of users, then these can became very vulnerable situations. So PIM, which is available with the E5 or a aMS E5 or a ADP2 subscriptions, then we have also the possibility to include these two latest features. And the conditional access is the thing that we use to actually control the access to our. How can we, in fact, I mentioned previously, how can we, in fact, is the preferred way to, in fact, turn on the multi-factor authentication en masse, let's say, throughout the whole organization in a controlled way. So the conditional access in here can, in fact, help us to, let's say, if we go to the security, in fact, and then we go to the conditional access, then we can see the, for example, the policy that we've set up for, in this example, Exchange Online requires compliant devices, or Office 365 app control. So it is also the preferred method to control the distribution. Well, the not the distribution, but in fact the setup of multi-factor authentication. So we decide. We take a look at the users and groups, and we take a look at the applications that are in fact here, that we in fact are targeting, and then we inspect the conditions, and the conditions can be anything from a user risk, sign-in risk, and the locations, and then we control how we and then we have the controls that make that actually will perform some actions on these entities, like require multi-factor authentication or compliant devices, and so on, for example. So the conditional access is in fact it's to enforce strong protection policies, and not just in Azure, but through all the tenant. And this is something that is extremely important. And the conditional access policy lifestyle, in fact, is the configuration, evaluation, and then getting insights. One advice: make a policy, and then what you should do. Don't enable it immediately, but turn on report only, and then you'll see how that will work for your environment. So don't just turn it on and then see that the users are complaining, and because something went wrong in that policy. And what else? We have the Office message encryption, which is also an important part. And the Office message encryption is in fact the tool is included with Microsoft 365. It's set up the companies that use Office 365 message encryption enabled combine the rights management capabilities that are provided with Azure Information Protection, and both encrypt email messages and encrypt, and also uses built-in certificates, in fact, to encrypt message and transfer the message as well. And extremely important, because with aMS we can ensure that only the intended recipients, in fact, can view the message. The aMS actually provides two options when we send the email. We have the do not encrypt and do not forward and encrypt, in fact, and we can send and receive with that encrypted email messages between people inside and outside the organization, which then we will mention also, because the other things as well, like insider threat and different things as well. So the threats in the threat management in Microsoft 365 is also that it's something extremely important, and we can, in fact, let's take a look at it quickly. We have, let's close this one because we don't need it anymore, and in fact, all right. So we have, when we go at the, let's close this one, and there it is. So we have threat management in security in Office 365, and security and compliance as well. So the threat management actually gives us the insight of the threats, as well as we can define the policies that actually will give us the information of the threats toward our tenant and toward our infrastructure. So we can, in fact, track phishing malware campaigns aimed at our users, and define the policies, in fact. So the threat management in here, why I didn't, in fact, say anything specifically or put it out. For example, let's say, why didn't I mention that the AKI? It's it's one, and safe links are the third, and the safe attachments is the fourth top 10 way. No, because it's the threat management works the best when the threat policies are comprehensive and inclusive of all these parts, because well, we it's not effective, in fact, if we just take a look in this one and neglect everything. So in one campaign we just did that, and then in fact we found out that the admins and the users, actually the admins haven't been using at all the other things, but in fact we mentioned in a company that and during the multiple months of the implementation, that in fact this should be used. And eventually, fortunately, we actually remediated that. But it's the threat policies. Please take a look at these, and in fact use it to set up the anti-phishing, anti-spam malware, and safe links. Everything in here, actually, it's targeted to us, to users, and we are the ones that are the cause of all of these problems. That's why we have these great tools. Please use it. It's extremely important. And what else? You could, in fact, also protect yourselves from raising threat, and that's ransomware. And with, for example, protecting, we can protect by in fact implementing some flow rules and attachment protection and so on. The eighth one is the DLP, or data loss prevention, in fact, which is the policy that will help prevent sensitive information like credit cards, numbers, and other things from leaking outside the organization. And of course, the DLP is, in fact, we can set up an Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, business sites, and so on. So the conditions and the actions. So the conditions look for the specific content, and the actions that you want to take, the rule to take automatically, actually are applied onto these. Extremely important, especially to protect after, or actually to protect the information to go outside inadvertently. So it doesn't have to be deliberately, but in fact inadvertently that can also happen. And then what we have also the Microsoft Defender for Identity as well, which is extremely important. It is the one that also protects our identities, the users, and it's in fact and in most attack campaigns, for example, hackers, their initial foothold by phishing the user, and then if Defender for Office is not in the use, for example, in the organization, or the email came through the different path, then the attachment will try to run the malware on the device where it's open. So and the exploitation, in fact, here comes in two phases. But the end, we have the attack happening and actually succeeding, and people, the bad persons, getting the hand on our data. So this should be, in fact, something that is also implemented, where, and in fact, is the Defender for Identity, which is in fact actually proactively and efficiently and signals as well. And the last part is something that we also have to mention, and that is the inside the risk management. And that inside the risk management, of course, it's the latest trend shows extremely well, raising the insider threat management increasingly has become the one of the most prominent reasons of the data breach and data leaks. So please do not neglect the insider risk management in Microsoft 365 as well. And this, well, we are still have some times, and in fact we are a little bit over the time. But in fact, I would like to say and ask you for if you have any questions. And in fact, each of these functions, or let's say services or features of our environment actually will add extremely to security, and especially in the latest development, in the latest trends. So we have to also think out of the box and stick to the, in fact, what's obvious, and where in fact we have to follow where the attackers are, and the attackers are here attacking our identity first of all, and the identities can have also the insider threat as well. All of these features actually and things we can devote entire week for each of them. But we've come near the end, and please, here's the link again. Thank you for following all the way and for these 2 great days. Please, there's another session on a different track. Follow this session as well. It's the last one, and please take a look at the link. Scan the QR code. Join the last session as well. This is not the end. There is the another session going on, and submit your quiz, of course. And of course, at the end, thank you, sponsors. Thank you for helping making the Southeast Asia aMS. Thank you again. And
yeah, thank you very much, Sasha. For the attendees, if you have any questions, this is the best time to drop them on the chat while Sasha is still here with us.
Yes, I'm still here. I'll be still here for some time. If you have any questions, please you can ask, or if you don't, you can always contact me. I'm on Twitter and elsewhere as well. But like I mentioned, feel free also to ask a few questions, and don't forget to submit quizzes and join the last session as well.
All right. Yeah. So the link for the feedback session, if you need it, it's on the chat. If you guys like we mentioned, if you have any question right now, you can unmute yourself and ask. And again, thank you for joining aMS Southeast Asia for the last 2 days, for devoting your weekend for the event. I hope you learned a lot as much as we have enjoyed sharing knowledge to all of you. This is the last session on the i3 Pro track today. So if you guys, I'll give a few more minutes if you guys have or want to ask question. This would be the best time. Yeah, I think right now, if you're using not just for Microsoft 365, but for if most of the staff are using already MFA. So if your environment is not yet using MFA, you should wake up your administrator and have them enable it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we're getting to a point where we're moving away from passwords. Password is no longer enough. So MFA is the way to go.
Exactly, and the passwordless. In fact, it's not the point that probably we won't get away from the password for some time. But the point is that we don't type in the password, and we don't have to remember it, and no one actually can see us typing it. We don't write it anywhere, and if we use the code, that code is only tied to that device, and we have the key that is this one, for example.
Yep.
And it's the Ubica one, and they've also there are biometric ones as well available. It's very cheap, and one important question people always say, what if I lose the key? So you have to have 2 keys, 3. You have 2 keys of your car. You have 5 keys of the apartment. Have 3 keys for a tenant, and that's the easiest way.
Yeah, and right now for MFA, it's already very easy to move it from one device to the other. Not unlike a few years ago, wherein you're gonna find it hard to move your key. For example, if you were using Microsoft MFA or Google MFA, it's hard to move it. But now it's very easy for the for the user. So there shouldn't be any excuse for your administrators not to be enabling this security.
And for example, I'm using this. I'm using like 3 or 4 different key providers. But for example, this Ubica also has the nice application where you can actually program the key with a 32 case long string, for example, that you don't have remember, and that in fact you can use the key to fill automatically in any field, so you don't have to remember. Just type the key, touch the key, and it will fill in the longest password you have, and you don't have to use one password, for example, and you have it always with yourself, and you can emulate, let's say, passwordless authentication to any site, whether it's supported or not. So it's a great tool. Not just one password. It supports like a long press and a short press and so on. So it's a very nice tools. And there's also NFC support and etc. etc.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you very much, Sasha. I don't see any more questions on the chat, so I think that's all. So thank you for your
Thanks a lot.
time. Thank you everyone for spending your afternoon here.
Thank you, everyone. Great event, excellent event. Thanks for being here, and thanks you for having me, and thanks for the attention.
All right, bye.